Well, let's take a closer look now at Afghanistan's economy and the elections. I'm joined by Hassan Abbas. He's a professor and the chair of the Department of Regional and Analytical Studies at the National Defense University's College of International Security Affairs. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So let's start with a look at the significance of these elections, obviously, given what it's taken to get the country to this point.
I think this is a very important step because these elections were delayed for over 3 years. These were supposed to happen in 2015. And there were issues of election reforms and how to go about it. So this is a step forward. And there were about 2,500 candidates for about, I think, 249 seats, about 420 women contesting elections. So this creates a certain kind of optimism and some progressive activity, and that hopefully will have an impact on the overall mood and tone of politics in Afghanistan.
Now, we know that the final results aren't expected for another month or so. Any early indications of what we could see?
It's difficult to say that because just before the election day, there was a terrible terrorist attack which killed one of the very prominent police chiefs of Afghanistan, General Razik. And a US senior official was also wounded, but they were the 3 top officials from one province with General Razik, the intelligence chief, the governor were killed. That had some impact. There were almost about 200 or so small attacks. So it had an impact on the voter participation. Still, about 3 million people out of 9 million registered voters participated. So we don't know yet, but the overall, and it's the system, the way it works is that the parties who will get more presence in the parliament, in the lower parliament, will not have a direct impact on who's the president. The president is there. The elections will happen next year. Most likely, the people who are candidates associated with the leading party members, like Mr. Ghani and Abdullah, they'll be the ones who will be successful for this phase.
And as we look at some of the issues that are on the minds of Afghan voters, what do you think would weigh the most on this particular set of elections?
I think at this time, this kind of continuation of democracy or this continuation of the process, especially for all those who have a stake in peace. I mean, we know Taliban in the south, the insurgent group is strong. They have been conducted attacks here or there. Once in a while, they take hold of one province, then the other. So there's this constant insurgency kind of situation in Afghanistan. Within that context, it is the capital and the center holding itself in itself is a positive thing. So that will hopefully, the people are hoping that it will bring more security. It will bring, as you rightly mentioned, the figures, 2.7% growth rate. The issue also is there's a 3% population growth rate. So then that has a negative impact on kind of overall economic activity.
So for people who are really trying to understand the nuts and bolts of the Afghan economy, what would you say are the biggest drivers?
The biggest drivers are, I mean, it's an agriculture country, agriculture-based economy, but insecurity drives away investment. And then there's a big issue of revenue collection. So Afghanistan hardly produces, you can say, 30% average rough figure of their own resources. It is hugely dependent on foreign aid and foreign investment. You take away US money, you take away European Union's money, and Afghanistan's economy will collapse. So the kind of main factor variable is security. Then there's this expansion of urban areas, which is a good thing, which means there's a new middle class, people are working, earning. But the way urban centers are expanding is unregulated. And there's an issue of services. Only 43% of Afghanistan has access to electricity. So these are the kind of drivers. Unless there's security, unless there's more electricity, unless there's more jobs, and some sense of hope in terms of economic growth, I mean, then the problems will otherwise remain so.
And how do the surrounding economies in the region, what should their role be in terms of Afghanistan's growth and its long-term outlook?
The problem is that it is the regional context which presents a bleak picture. The India-Pakistan rivalry at one level, the other economies, unless there's a cohesive approach, unless I would argue the US and China work together, unless India and Pakistan have a functioning, working relationship when it comes to Afghanistan, the problems will remain. So there is economic activity in the area, but they're all players in, unfortunately, in a conflict kind of situation. That's a big hindrance.
Now, one thing that perhaps may play a positive role is China's Belt and Road Initiative. We know that obviously you have India involved, Pakistan. How do you see China's involvement in Afghanistan?
China has been involved. China has been more like an observer in many cases. However, China started off a counterterrorism training program. Then currently, China has started training some of the diplomats in Afghanistan. But these are small pilot projects. The big project is about the infrastructure and the road network. I think that can have a huge impact because that will allow the connectivity and that will connect Afghanistan with Central Asia, with Pakistan in a more stable fashion. So there's a huge potential that the road network and especially the infrastructure development from China, that can play a big role in future.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Great having you. Professor Hassan Abbas of the National Defense University's College of International Security Affairs.